hate this book. I fucking hate this book. Hi, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Peyton, and today we are doing one of my favorite end of year videos to make, I guess, because it's not my favorite books to talk about. No. It is my most disappointing and worst books of the year. I do want to preface, like any other content creator on this platform, these are my opinions. If I talk about any book that you absolutely loved, it was your favorite, 5 stars, it's in your top, great. I'm so happy for you. They did not work for me for the reasons I will get into. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. I'm going to start out with my most disappointing read of the year and work up to my worst book of the year. Oh, it's the day after Christmas. Luke got me these dagger earrings. It's like a little blood drop. I thought they were perfect to wear for today. I tend to go for the throat. This book I talked about in my catch-up video that I just posted a few days ago, so I won't go too deep in it, but it is my most disappointing book of the year by far because it was my most anticipated book of the year, and the second book in this series was in my top 3 last year. And the book I'm talking about is Empire of the Dawn by Jay Kristoff. This is book 3 in the Empire of the Vampire series, the final book. Okay, if you don't know what Empire of the Vampire is, it's the first book opens with, it's kind of like Interview with a Vampire, but more high fantasy. You're being told the story by Gabriel de Leon, who is the last Silver Saint. And the Silver Saints are this order of, they're called Pale Bloods, which they're half human, half vampire, and they are tasked with destroying all vampires in this world. Day's death started, which is the death of the sun. So vampires are roaming rampant. There's armies of them. You're hearing the story from Gabriel and his quest to find the Holy Grail, which is supposedly the tool to end Day's death. That is the first book. And I love the first and second book so much. I love these characters. I love this world Jay Kristoff created. It was just a really meh book, and I was really bummed because it was the final book and it, like, the first 2 led up to this, like, major climax. And I mentioned it before that Jay Kristoff took a very big, bold swing with the finale of this book that I don't know if it paid off for me. I feel like on a reread, if I read them all back to back to back, I probably would have maybe rated higher, but I did feel like it was too long. It was a little meandering. There was a point of view and story that I felt was really shoved in, and I didn't think it was necessary in this book. It was very out of place, where it maybe would have been better in the first or the second book. So that is Empire of the Dawn. I still love this world. I still highly recommend these books. Maybe you will feel differently if you get to this point and get to the 3rd book. I highly recommend them. It's really good fantasy horror, vampire horror. Like, I love it. My other disappointing read of the year, which I'm a little nervous to talk about because I've watched a few creators' best books of the year, and this book was on 3 of those lists so far. And I have a feeling it's going to end up on a lot of people's favorite. Unfortunately, it was not one of mine, and it's a bummer because I love this author's previous work. And that book is When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. I'm so sorry because I loved Nestlings and I loved Mary, his previous work, and I did enjoy Rest Stop, which was the novella he put out. When the Wolf Comes Home opens with this struggling actress, Jess, and she is on her way home from a really long shift as a waitress, and she just wants to open a beer and chill. But she hears this child crying outside of her back door, her sliding glass door, and she goes out to investigate and finds that this boy's father has turned into something beastly. This kicks off like this road, high action paced story with Jess and this boy like trying to get away from his father. But there's also something very special and different about this boy that Jess comes to realize. By no means do I think this is a bad book from Nat Cassidy. I don't. I think it's very well written. I think the horror is great. The body horror especially is really good. There is one scene in this book that I think is so well written and so terrifying. If you know, you know. It's about one of the side characters, and it's just like, man, that was so well written and so horrifying. But to me, I don't think I'm a horror fan that enjoys a lot of action in their books or movies. I think I like slow not even meandering, like slow unfurling horror, much like Nestlings and Mary. And without spoiling anything, I think it was a little too goofy for me in some instances. I didn't particularly really like Jess or the boy individually. I thought like their moments together were, some of them were very sweet and touching when it wasn't like high octane like stuff happening, I'm gonna say. And the ending I didn't love either, but the author's note at the end is amazing. And I love Nat Cassidy's books because his author note are so deeply personal and touching. So I really love that about his books. I teared up a bit. It was great. I will still pick up anything he writes. I think he is such a strong voice in horror right now, and I really like his storytelling and what he comes up with. I just wish I'd loved this more. Again, not a bad book. I just wish I'd loved it more. Okay, and this one, this one like actually made me like angry when I read it. I read it when it came out and I was actually really excited for it, but I think I think a lot of people were also let down by this. Great Big Beautiful Life, Great BBL. It's another name for it. This is Emily Henry's book that came out this year where she was exploring more of a literary fiction lens with romance. This is about two authors who are vying for the rights to this actress's memoir who's been like out of the public eye for decades and nobody knows why, and she gives them a month to convince her why they would be the best author to write her story. And obviously Emily Henry, like some romantic stuff ensues, some banter. I did like Alice a lot as a main character. Alice Scott, she's one of the authors. I did really like her. I liked Hayden. I thought they had some chemistry. I think for me, I wish, like think most people, that the romance was more in the forefront and it was very much on the back burner. This woman, Margaret Ives, like her story, it had echoes of Evelyn Hugo in it. I think Emily Henry was trying to do her version of the 7 Deaths or whatever. I forgot what it's called. The Evelyn Hugo book that everyone obsesses about. I think it was her version of trying to like write a story like that, and I don't think it was up to par because the parts that were Margaret's story, they were boring. They were fucking boring. You are lying if you don't think those parts were boring. And I think the part why it works so well with Evelyn Hugo is because they were so lush and transportive, and Margaret's parts were very much like a page and a half, 2 pages, and it felt so dull and bland and boring. It wasn't a very exciting story. So I think that's why it just didn't work. It was just bland. And I think from an author like Emily Henry, who has now, I think, had every book of hers like lined up to be adapted to a movie, I think this was like a very big letdown for a lot of her fans. And I'm a newer reader to Emily Henry. I read a book of hers for the first time last year, and it was one of my favorite books of the year, which is Funny Story. So I was like super looking forward to this. Like I think a lot of people were, and it was just okay, another letdown. And this one's more of like a letdown because I think it could have been really up my alley and it just fell flat on its face for me, and that is Sky Daddy by Kate Folk. I got an arc of this early on in the year before it was released, and I was super excited because yeah, it just sounded right up my alley. So Sky Daddy is about this woman named Linda who during the day is an online moderator, comment moderator for a platform similar to like YouTube. She doesn't earn a lot of money. She lives in someone's garage on the outskirts of San Francisco, and once a month she indulges herself by taking a round-trip flight because Linda is sexually obsessed with planes, and she thinks it's her destiny to marry one of these planes by dying in a fiery plane crash. So every time she gets on a plane, she hopes it will end in a plane crash so she can be with her true love forever. So that's the story. It was very bizarre, it was really bubbly, it was funny in some points, but it was ultimately actually really sad. It was weird, as you'd expect a book to be about a woman who is sexually obsessed with planes to be. But I thought it was going to be weirder. I thought it was maybe going to be more profound. It just was like really bleh. And like the side characters surrounding the main character I thought were pretty annoying and didn't really offer much to the story. I felt like they were really unnecessary. If you'd removed them completely and just focused on Linda, I think it maybe would have, I don't know, balanced out more, because it felt like they were just fodder to like with the page count to make a larger page count. And maybe I needed something like more backstory about Linda or her friends. It just felt like very, again, bland and meh and not memorable, which is shocking considering the subject matter of this book, that it isn't more memorable because I don't remember a lot about the story other than like the main plot. Yeah, it just wasn't one of my top favorite reads of the year, and I think I thought it was going to be like this weird, touching, profound, funny thing, and it just was meh. Okay, now we are veering into disappointments, but also like worse. We're kind of like on that line with these next few books. Okay, The Starving Saints by Caitlin Starling. This had me written all over it. If you know anything about me, have watched my previous videos, seen my tattoo tour, I love medieval shit. I love medieval knights. I love medieval lady knights. And I thought this was like, it was supposed to be a fever dream of medieval horror, following these three women who are stuck in this besieged castle with no hope of rescue. Their castle's food supplies are dwindling. They are really scared about what they will have to do next in order to survive. And then all of a sudden, these saints show up. Their food is restored. Their wine is flowing freely. The castle is starts to descend into this bacchanalian madness, and there's still really no hope or sign of that they're getting rescued, and these three women start to suspect that there is something wrong with these saints. Okay, I think this is false advertising because this was supposed to be this fever dreamy, like I said, descent into absolute sex and madness, and I felt like all of that happened off the page. It was like in the background, like described by like a sentence or something. The three women you're focusing on, or what you're focusing on, like their stories, which I thought were interesting. I thought they were all very distinct and memorable characters, and their points of view were needed, and their backgrounds were, I thought, like fleshed out enough, but the story itself was not fleshed out. I honestly can't even remember a lot of what happens. I know that there's a talking wall, or someone in a wall. There's some time travel. I don't freaking know. It was just a hot ass mess. It just was like, I don't know. I don't know how authors or editors get to a point where they're like, yeah, this is good. Like, this is publishable. Because it felt like such false advertising. Like, it just didn't feel, it felt like a draft. It felt like a draft that needed another go around or 2 or 3. Next is The Unworthy by Augustina Bastarrica. Everyone, shrub. You might want to get down. He's been a little spicy the last couple days, haven't you? Okay, The Unworthy by Augustina Bastarrica. Augustina Bastarrica wrote Tender is the Flesh, which was all the horror rage a few years ago, and I actually really did enjoy it. Can I get down? Okay, that was short-lived. This, I feel like, is a very far departure writing and story-wise from Tender is the Flesh. The Unworthy, I don't even really know how to describe it. It's from the perspective, written in diary entries from this woman who's in this mysterious convent. And it's the story of her life in the convent, and it's written in whatever she can find, dirt, blood, other substances. And it's talking about the sacred sisterhood, the enlightened, and all this weird ass shit that's in this convent. The stranger who shows up and who the main character becomes obsessed with, and the changes that come within the convent at the arrival of the stranger. It's supposed to be, I don't know. I can't even talk about it. I was so lost. Don't even really know if I knew what was going on for more than half the book. And by the time I kind of figured it out, the book was ending because it's a novella. It was this weird fever dream. It's supposed to be like dystopian and all this shit, which I didn't get any lick of at all. About climate change, didn't understand that. It is very like religious horror, which I don't mind, but I just didn't think it was executed very well because again, you have no footing on really anything that's happening. You don't really know what the stakes are. Whereas in Tender is the Flesh, you knew exactly what was going on. You felt grounded in like what was going on in the story, what the characters were going through, everything. And I just felt this was it was too weird for me, if that makes sense. Like, it was just too out there for me, and maybe I'm just dumb and just didn't get it, but I don't know. Yeah, that's The Unworthy. All right, the next grouping of books is for sure my worst books of the year. Buckle up, because I might be a little mean. Sorry. I might be a little spicy. I might be a little spicy like Shrub. Okay, this was technically a DNF, but it has stayed with me all year, and I feel like I read more than half of it, so I'm counting it as one of my worst books of the year. This is a little bit of a bummer too, because I have liked what I've read from this author before, even if it was just one book, and that is Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill. This I read when I did reading your scariest book recommendations video, and oh god, yeah, I'm sorry, it was not scary. This is about this Asian rock god named Judas Coin. He likes to collect like morbid memorabilia, like a hangman's noose, a serial killer painting, stuff in jars, like weird like edgelord shit. He gets an email from someone who wants to give him this haunted suit. And he's like, okay, whatever, sure. Turns out it's actually haunted. Then he is like trying to figure out how to get rid of it, and his struggles to get rid of it as he's being haunted openly by this ghost. There's more backstory there, but it does lean into spoiler territory, so I'll stay away from that. I think you are supposed to hate Judas Coin. Like, he's disgusting, misogynistic. Like, he cheated on his wife multiple times, heavy into drugs and drinking. His girlfriends, loose term there. He doesn't even care to remember their name, so he calls them the state where they're born, like Georgia, Florida, Virginia, shit like that. Every woman is either described as like this pale as a ghost waif with like in her underwear all day, no bra, like walking around like basically freezing because she's not wearing any clothes, or they're either fat and disgusting and why would anyone want to touch them, Pillsbury Doughboy, shit like that. So it was just like, and yeah, again, you're in Judas Coin's POV, like he's disgusting, but it was just so overdone. Like, okay, we get it. Like, you don't need to describe another woman's body like this. Or you don't need to say how dumb they are and how useless they are. Okay, we get it. Also, the ghost was so lame. It was so lame. Haunting, again, I think this is something Joe Hill likes to do, is like a radio, a phone call. Haunting, like talking to you through these devices. It was just an old man who just stared at them and he was smelly. And they like, there's one scene where like him and Georgia like literally like walk around him to avoid him. What? I read, the other Joe Hill book I read was Nosferatu, which I actually really enjoyed. I thought it was really good horror, like really good Christmas horror actually. And then to read this, which I'd heard nothing but like great things and how terrifying this book was. And I'm just like, really? What? Again, if you love this book, kudos, but like what the hell? Blech. Okay, alright, let's move on, because again, I did DNF that book, but another bad book I read this year. And I did read the next three I read the whole thing, so no more DNFs. The next book is Old Soul by Susan Barker. Again, a book I thought I would really love. And it opens in Osaka, where two strangers, Jake and Mariko, are commiserating with each other at the airport bar over a missed flight, and they start to talk about these loved ones they've lost who were brutally killed, and they both cross paths with this very mysterious, charming woman that no one has seen since, and they're different timelines too. Basically, the book is, every section of the book is a different story about someone coming in contact with this woman as Jake tries to trace her and figure out where she is and who she is. Like, I think it started off really strong, and then the more it stretched out, the less interested I became in the story. It just became really boring and dull, and by the climax, I didn't really care about anything. So I think it was more of just like I think all of like the intrigue and creepiness was at the forefront, and then by the end it was just like dry. There's pacing issues too, like some chapters I thought were really interesting and others I thought were really overdone, like overwritten and drawn out. And there's also another timeline, like where she is currently and what's going on with her, that was like slipped in between. So it just felt, I didn't like how it was structured. I think if it had just been one like solid narrative and timeline, I think it probably would have been more interesting, and maybe I don't know how it would have worked for me differently, but it didn't work. Oh, okay, these next two I have a lot to say about, so sorry if you've liked these two books. Okay, First Time Caller by B.K. Borson. It's my first time reading B.K. Borson, which I don't know if I will continue because I really hated this book, which is a bummer. This is set in Baltimore. You're following Aiden Valentine, who is a talk show host of this romance hotline, and he doesn't really believe in love anymore until he gets a call from this young girl who's trying to help her mom, named Lucy, find love finally. Their interview becomes viral. It's much like Sleepless in Seattle, which is one of my favorite movies. So I was like hooked. It's set in Baltimore where I used to live, so I was like, yes. Once it becomes viral, the show like kind of kicks off trying to help Lucy find her true love, and it's a romance. Lucy and Aiden kind of become intertwined and all this stuff. He wants to help her find her true love, even if it's not him. Okay, Aiden gave me the ick. He was gross. They're both in their mid-30s or early 30s, and he gave like early 20s emotionally unavailable dude bro. And he was so whiny and so like, where's the red flag dude? You know the one I'm talking about? Yeah, him. Like, so many red flags. So many red flags. Like, there was this part where this guy who comes to her, she's a mechanic, Lucy's a mechanic, who comes to the auto shop and like flirts with her over, this guy owns a Chevy, and they like talk about his car, and it's like maybe a page and a half of dialogue, and I felt like they had more chemistry than her and Aiden did the entire novel. Anyway, this guy calls into the show and says he left her flowers. Aiden's holding a pen and snaps it because he's so jealous. I'm sorry, that's not hot. That is gross and scary and red flag. Also, he's 30 years old. He doesn't really want to hang out with his mom or his parents because his mom, when he was younger, got cancer, and it emotionally scarred him so bad that he can't bear the thought of her getting cancer again, even though she's been in remission for like over a decade at this point. So he distances himself from them on like holidays, vacations, even talking to her on the phone. I'm like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, what a dick. And like, I loved Lucy. I loved the other supporting cast that surrounded her. I thought they were great. He was just such a twerp. Aiden was a twerp, and he was red flag all over, and Lucy deserved better in my opinion. I'm sorry. I just don't understand. Like, I felt like his like attachment to Lucy was, and like jealous and possessiveness over Lucy was so fast. Like, it happened so quickly in the book. It was like, what is wrong with you? Oh my god. And he's just, yeah, he's such a twerp, and like, oh my god, I would hate him. Maybe because when I was dating, I like came across guys like him before, like when I was dating, like in my around my 20s, like guys were like very much like Aiden, and it was just like, ugh. Gross, get out of here. Okay, and then, yeah, my worst book of the year. I hate this fucking book. Okay, my worst book of the year is Baby Teeth by Zosha Stage. Baby Teeth is about a mother and daughter. Hannah is 7, she's mute, and she loves her dad, absolutely despises her mom, and wants to get rid of her for good. And then Suzette is the mom who, she's a stay-at-home mom, and she knows that something's off with Hannah. She knows that Hannah doesn't particularly like her, but she doesn't really understand why. So the book is told in dual POV. It's Suzette trying to connect with her daughter, but also trying to figure out what's wrong with her. She's been kicked out of like every school she's been a part of, preschool, whatever, day camp, and her behavior is escalating into violence against Suzette and others around her. You get Hannah's inner thoughts as well as Suzette's, and it's really clear that Suzette doesn't really like her daughter, doesn't really want to be a mom, misses her old life, misses what her marriage used to be. Yeah, Hannah is fucked up. She has a fucked up little kid. This is supposed to be a thriller, horror. Hannah just wants to kill her mom. That's kind of what like you get from like the first few chapters of the book. Her husband Alex is the most useless person I think I've ever come across in a book. And this book was repetitive as fuck. Oh my god. It was like the same thing every chapter. It's like Monday, should we take her to a shrink? She just like tried to hit me. Or like, she did this to the wall, blah, blah, blah. Tuesday, she was so good today. I think she's fine. Wednesday, maybe we should take her to see somebody. Thursday, oh, well, she was really sweet. She smiled when we went grocery shopping. She's fine. Friday, we should call a psychiatrist. Saturday, maybe tomorrow. Maybe. She's been so good today. It's so infuriating to think that so many adults in this book or so dumb and useless. Like, even like the school system, child welfare, child psychologists, police. You would think like all of them would be like, yeah, this girl has issues, like we should look into this, blah blah blah. And she's so young. It's just like, you think that there would be all this steps along the way, and there's not. And the ending is so freaking stupid. I don't understand how this is a book. I don't understand how this is published. I don't understand. It's like not even 300 pages, and it just is so poorly done and doesn't make any sense. I hate this book. Oh my god, the parenting skills or lack thereof, like, what? I hate this book. I think it makes no sense. I think it's so stupid. I think the front blurb compares it to like The Omen and We Need to Talk About Kevin. Not a slight comparison after reading this book. Like, what the hell? Oh my god. And apparently there's a follow-up. Oh my god. All right, I can't. I don't want to. All right, I'm just in a bad mood now. Oh my god, I just want to like just absolutely like drop kick that book into like the past. Well, that was my most disappointing and worst books of the year. Again, apologies if you liked any of these or even loved any of these. I guess. I'm sorry. I don't know. Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for clicking. And I will have my best books of the year coming soon.